Just in the lead up to Christmas, good to catch up again with the member for Frome, Penny Pratt. Penny, season's greetings to you. A Merry Christmas and have been a big year for you.
And to you, Ricky, and all of your listeners, yes, Merry Christmas at this time of year. It has been a big year for everyone. Your listeners will probably share the same fatigue we do, and that is electionitis. We went to a state election in March, federal election in May, and we've just seen the back of local council elections. And may I applaud everyone that put themselves forward at that time. It has been a big year.
Certainly has, and you got elected as the member of Frome in a newly shaped Frome electorate. Just briefly, what does that electorate cover for those that may not even be familiar with yourself?
Yes, indeed. Look, it's 200 kilometres long from Tarawi to Two Wells and everything in between. So the fabulous golden fields at the moment of the mid-north, Balaclava, Malala, and the light council area of Kapunda and Udunda, all of the Clare and Gilbert Valley up the Goyder Highway to Burra and beyond. So I feel very blessed. The electorate have been very kind to me. It's a great privilege to be a member of Parliament, and I hope that with my speeches and participation in Parliament, as well as my advocacy on the ground, people can see what they should expect for the next 3 years.
Well, they're also going to see a bit more of you in the shadow ministry, Penny. You've been put straight into that regarding regional health. Tell us a bit about that role and indeed your recent trip down to the southeast.
Yes, Ricky, thank you. Look, our new leader of the Liberal Party, David Spears, bestowed on me the privilege of being a shadow minister in 3 areas: regional health services, which is essential to the work that I do locally. I'm the Shadow Minister for Ageing, as well as preventative health and wellbeing. I value all of those areas, and within the electorate of Frome, working with allied health professionals, doctors and nurses, volunteer paramedics, as well as travelling around the state, I've begun to get a pretty good grasp on the challenges ahead of us, facing us with GP shortages, access to GPs, access to mental health services, and a dire need for funding. But most recently, a travel trip to the southeast. I have been over to the west coast and up to the Spencer Gulf as well. But most recently down in the southeast, visiting the Millicent Health Advocacy Group. I've been to the Penola Hospital, the Narracourt Hospital. It's clear that we desperately need state funding pouring into our public assets, our aged care facilities where they're attached to hospitals, as well as our local hospitals. And I want to reassure your listeners that around Kapunda, Udunda, Jamestown, Burra and Clare, that's what I'm focused on every day.
I notice you say, look, these resources need to be piled into these hospitals. The Liberal Party was in government for one term, for 4 years. What work was underway to upgrade some of these hospitals and health services? Has it been pulled up by the current government, or is there a plan for more that maybe hadn't come to fruition?
Look, I think that it's always going to be a big job for the government of the day to keep investing in health. And it's not just health, of course. We might touch on roads shortly, because I think the way you get to hospital safely is on our local roads. But the state government delivered, the Labor state government delivered its budget back in May, committing funding to regional health. But what they mean by that is millions of dollars for the big hospitals in the big towns, and a completion date delayed out to the years 26, 27. So I think it's my duty in opposition as the Shadow Minister for Regional Health Services to hold the government to those delivery dates and to keep shining a light on the smaller towns that have not had that promise of funding, and to make sure that they are not left behind.
Well, we better move on to roads, because there's a whole lot of work required there, including in your own electorate on the Barrier Highway at Burra. Sounds like the roads are going to be moving a bit slower there while some important work's undertaken.
Well, look, that's exactly right. And there is important work being undertaken, and people who travel along the Horrocks Highway will see that there is fantastic work in its final tranche and its final stages as a result of investment and funding by both state Liberal and federal coalition governments to improve our roads. A backlog of work left to us. But what really concerns me right now is the state of the roads after our really wet winter and spring. And in any direction in this electorate, north, south, east and west, I'm concerned about the state of the roads. And I have continued to lobby the Minister for Regional Roads, Jeff Brock, and as well as the Minister for Infrastructure and Transport, Tom Koutsantonis, on the state of the roads. And of most recent concern is the stretch between Maribel and Kapunda. I drove along 17 kilometres and I stopped 13 times, Ricky, to take photos and capture for the city, policy wonks, exactly what we are driving on every single day. The witches' hats that blow over to mark, safety issues are insufficient. We've got kids that are crossing the roads for school buses still for another 2 weeks. The verges are narrow. We're in harvest with vintage to come. We've got big implements and trucks on our roads. So it can't wait for the roadworks crew to get around to it. And I would ask, Ricky, with your support, that your listeners write down this number. It's not widely known, but I'm calling on farmers and road users to log every pothole and crater that they come across. They'd be calling this number, 1-800-018-313. I'll repeat that again. It's a call into the Traffic Management Centre and you get a log number, 1-800-018-313. Minister Brock has assured me that where people call this 1-800 number, there is an obligation to respond to that report within 24 hours.
That's a very good point and very important coming up to and indeed progressing through harvest. I've heard some distressing claims about the Clare and Auburn region and just how poor the crops have turned out for some. What are you hearing in the electorate for the cropping district?
Well, look, I am hearing something different. Chatting with farmers, I think the wet weather we saw in spring was a worry for many, and we know that alerts were coming out almost hourly about rust or downy mildew or threats to crop. We know that there's been a downgrading for hay and for some grains, but in fact, even the state minister declared recently that it's possible we've even exceeded earlier predictions of farm gate value, and I understand South Australia is still sitting on top of a $4.4 billion harvest this year. It doesn't mean that farmers haven't been caught up in a downgrading of quality on their property, and the weather is temperamental, isn't it, Ricky? It can rise over a hill and hit one farmer badly and bypass another. So this time of year, I think it's important to celebrate the hard work that our farmers do, and I mean men and women. But Christmas is coming and they'll still be on the headers. So look after your local farmers. Hope they look after themselves and make sure that they find a chance to have a break with loved ones.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Penny Pratt. We do feel for those farmers who will be harvesting through Christmas, but they piled in at the Viterra delivery sites in a big way in the last week, delivering, I think it was about 1.2 million tonnes in just a week. That's more than 10% of the harvest, so they're trying to get it done before Christmas by the looks of it.
They sure are. I drove through, was on the 9 Mile last night between Malala and Balaclava, and they're going for it. You see the lights twinkling at night time. Farmers are grabbing this cool and dry weather. I know that pressure is on to get the crop off, and I'm sure that we all wish them well with that.
Absolutely. A good note to finish on. Penny Pratt is the member for Frome. We look forward to speaking with you again next year. Again, have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same to you, Ricky, and your listeners. Merry Christmas, everyone. Stay safe on the roads. Happy New Year.